I came home on a Tuesday evening to find the front door of my own apartment unlocked. I always lock it. Always. I've lived alone for 3 years, and locking the door is as automatic as breathing. So when the handle turned without my key, my stomach dropped before I even stepped inside. My laptop was gone from the kitchen table, the one I use for work. The one I spent 8 months saving up for after my old one died mid-project. A custom-built machine that cost me $4,200. Gone. Just a clean rectangle of dust where it used to sit. I stood in my own kitchen and stared at that rectangle for probably 30 seconds before my brain caught up with what my eyes were seeing. Then I noticed the note on the counter. It was written on the back of a grocery receipt, in my mother-in-law's handwriting. She has this very particular way of writing the letter D that I would recognize anywhere. The note said, and I am quoting this word for word, because I read it so many times it is burned into my memory. Gave the computer to Derek. He needs it for his business. You're young, you can get another one. Family first. Mom. Derek is my brother-in-law. He is 31 years old. He has started, by my count, 6 businesses in the past 4 years. A food truck, a dropshipping store, a pressure washing company, some kind of crypto thing, a mobile detailing service, and most recently, a consulting firm with no clients, no website, and no business license. I am a freelance graphic designer. My laptop is not a luxury item. It is my office. It is every client file I have ever worked on, every tool I use to pay my rent, my groceries, my utilities. Without it, I cannot work. Without work, I have no income. This is not complicated. I called my husband at work. He picked up on the second ring and I said very calmly, "Your mother let herself into our apartment and took my laptop and left a note saying she gave it to Derek." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'm sure she had a reason." I want you to sit with that sentence for a moment. I'm sure she had a reason. As if a reason, any reason, would make it acceptable for someone to enter my home without my permission and take my property. I told him I was calling the police to report it stolen. He asked me to wait. He said, "Let me call her first. Let me find out what's going on. Give me an hour." I said, 1 hour. 1 hour, and then I'm making the call. I sat down on my couch and I thought about how we got here. My mother-in-law, Patricia, has never liked me. That's not me being dramatic or insecure. It's simply a fact that she confirmed to my face approximately 6 months into my marriage when she told me over Sunday dinner that she wished my husband had married someone more established. What she meant by established was someone from their family's social circle. Someone whose family had money, the way their family had money, or used to have money, or believed they still had money, despite all evidence suggesting otherwise. I grew up working class. I put myself through design school. I built my client roster from nothing, cold emailing local businesses for 2 years before I had enough steady work to go full-time freelance. Everything I own, I paid for myself. My laptop, my camera equipment, my car, the furniture in my apartment, all of it bought with money I earned doing work I taught myself to do. Derek, on the other hand, has never held a job longer than 5 months. His longest streak of employment was at a sports bar where he worked as a bartender until he had a disagreement with management about his shift schedule. Patricia has been funding his business ventures for years. She co-signed a loan for the food truck. She bought the pressure washing equipment. When he needed a laptop for the consulting firm, apparently the solution was to walk into my apartment and take mine. My husband called back in 40 minutes. He said his mother explained that she had a spare key from when we first moved in, and she watered our plants while we were on our honeymoon. He said she just thought it would be easier than asking. He said Derek really needs a good computer to get this business off the ground, and I have my phone, so it's not like I'm completely without technology. He said maybe we could figure out a solution together as a family. The phrase "as a family" is doing enormous work in that sentence, because a family is not what I felt like I was a part of in that moment. I said, "Does Derek still have that warrant out for his arrest in Jefferson County?" Silence. I had learned about the warrant 8 months earlier, completely by accident, when my husband's cousin mentioned it at a birthday party after a few drinks. Apparently Derek had a failing to appear charge from 2 years ago after missing a court date related to a fender bender where he was found to be driving without valid insurance. He had never dealt with it. It was just sitting there. an active warrant in his name. My mother-in-law knew about it. My husband knew about it. The whole family knew about it. They had just collectively decided not to deal with it and hoped it would somehow resolve itself. I said, because if he's using stolen property, and I will be describing it to the police as stolen, and they run his name for any reason, that warrant is going to come up. And at that point, this stops being a family disagreement and starts being a criminal situation for multiple people. My husband said my name in the warning tone he uses when he thinks I'm being unreasonable. I said, I'm not being unreasonable. I'm telling you exactly what's going to happen if my laptop is not back in my apartment within 2 hours, not returned to me in a week, not mailed back when Derek is done with it, back in my apartment in working condition in 2 hours. He said he needed to talk to his mother. I said, you have 2 hours. Then I hung up and I called my best friend Maya because I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. Maya has known me since college. She is the kind of person who responds to a crisis by becoming extremely practical and focused, which is exactly what I needed. She said, did they break in or did they use a key? I said they used a key they were supposed to have returned. She said, change the locks tonight regardless of how this ends. That's non-negotiable. She was right. I also, while I waited, started documenting everything. I took photos of the empty spot on the table. I found my receipt for the laptop in my email and screenshotted it. I had the serial number in my records because I'd registered it with the manufacturer. I wrote down the timeline of events. I was not going to be caught without documentation if this went where I thought it might go. 50 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Patricia. She did not apologize. I want to be very clear about that. She opened the conversation by saying she didn't appreciate being given ultimatums in her own family and that she'd only been trying to help Derek get on his feet. I asked her if she understood that what she did was illegal regardless of her intentions. She said she had a key, which she seemed to believe meant she had permission to enter and remove items. I explained that a key given for a specific purpose, watering plants during a trip, does not constitute open access to someone's home or belongings at any time. She said, Derek is family. I said, so is my husband, and my husband's name is not on that laptop. Mine is. It's registered to me. The receipt is in my name. I bought it. None of that changes because Derek needs it. She said I was being selfish. She said when you marry into a family, you have to be willing to give. She said Derek was going through a hard time and I should have more compassion. She said her son needed support, and it wasn't too much to ask for me to use my phone for a few weeks while Derek got his business started. I said, Patricia, I use that laptop to earn money. If I don't have it, I can't work. If I can't work, I don't get paid. The mortgage on this apartment isn't paid with compassion. She said maybe I should be more flexible about where I work. I genuinely could not believe what I was hearing. I said, the laptop needs to be back in my apartment in 1 hour and 12 minutes. After that, I'm calling the police. She said I was being dramatic. I hung up. I sat on my couch and I looked at the clock on my microwave and I thought about all the versions of myself that might have handled this differently. The version who would have cried and asked nicely. The version who would have agreed to wait just a few weeks and watched weeks turn into months. The version who would have internalized the word selfish and started to wonder if she was the problem. I thought about those versions of myself and I felt nothing but relief that I was not them anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from my husband. She's being stubborn. Can we please just talk about this at dinner? I'll make sure you get it back. I texted back, dinner is too late. 1 hour. He called. I did not pick up. With 40 minutes left, I called the non-emergency police line and explained the situation. I said I had returned home to find my laptop missing, that my mother-in-law had entered my apartment using a key she was not supposed to retain, and that she had taken my property and given it to a third party. I gave them the serial number. I gave them the timeline. The officer I spoke to was very calm and professional and told me they could send someone to take a report, and that if I had the serial number and proof of ownership, there was a clear path forward. I said I wanted to give the party in possession of the laptop an opportunity to return it voluntarily first. The officer said that was reasonable and told me to call back when I was ready to proceed. I called my husband one more time. He picked up. I said, I just got off the phone with the police. I have a case started. I have the serial number registered. When I call back, they're sending someone. I want you to understand that I am not bluffing and I am not being dramatic. "You have 35 minutes." He said, "This is insane. She's my mother." I said, "I know. I'm sorry it got here, but she walked into my home and took something that I need to do my job. I've given multiple opportunities for this to be resolved without police involvement. 35 minutes?" He said some things after that which I won't repeat in full, but the general theme was that I was making a family problem into a legal problem and that I was going to damage relationships that couldn't be repaired. I said I understood that. I said I hoped the laptop would be back before any of that happened. He hung up. 22 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. It was Derek. He was holding my laptop with both hands like it was something fragile, which I found almost funny given that 24 hours ago, no one in that family seemed to think it was worth anything at all. He handed it to me without making eye contact. He said, "Mom said to bring it back." I said, "Thank you." He left. I plugged it in. I opened it. I checked every file, every folder, every application. As far as I could tell, he hadn't deleted anything or installed anything. I ran a security scan anyway. I changed all my passwords. I checked my cloud backups. Then I called a locksmith. The locksmith came that evening, and I had both locks replaced and new keys made. I did not give my husband the key that night. I told him I would give him one in the morning, but that I needed the night to think, and that the key Patricia had been using was no longer valid, and I needed him to communicate that clearly. He came home to a lock that his key didn't fit. He texted me from outside. I let him in. We talked until 2 in the morning. I want to be honest about that conversation, because I think it's important. My husband is not a bad person. He has a mother who has spent 30 years teaching him that her feelings are the emotional center of every room she enters, and that love means making accommodations for Patricia regardless of what it costs anyone else. Unlearning that is work. He hadn't done enough of that work before this happened. But that night, sitting on our couch at 2 in the morning, he said something I hadn't heard him say before. He said, "I should have told her to return it the second you called me. I'm sorry I didn't. Not, I'm sorry you feel that way. Not, I'm sorry things got so complicated. I'm sorry I didn't. That matters." Patricia did not apologize. She sent a text the following week saying that she hoped we could move past this as a family and that she hoped I understood she had only been trying to help Derek. I did not respond to that text. My husband responded on his own behalf. I don't know exactly what he said, but the key was returned in an envelope with no note. Derek's consulting firm lasted another 6 weeks before he pivoted to something involving short-term rental arbitrage. I don't know how that's going. I don't ask. The warrant in Jefferson County, as far as I know, is still unresolved. That's not my problem to manage, but I know about it, and everyone in that family now knows that I know, and that I'm not afraid to use information strategically when someone decides to walk into my home and take what's mine. I kept the documentation. The photos, the receipt, the serial number, the timeline, I kept all of it in a folder I labeled with the date. I hope I never need to open it again. But I will, if I have to. My laptop sits on my kitchen table right now, in the exact spot where it always sits. I'm looking at it while I write this. It's not a symbol of anything dramatic or profound, it's just a tool I use to do my job. But every time I see it, I think about that clean rectangle of dust on Tuesday evening, and the version of myself that decided, very quietly, that some lines do not get moved. Not for family. Not for anyone. If he's been in a situation where someone took something from you and called it love, I want you to know that love does not help itself to your property. Love does not enter your home without permission. Love does not hand your things to someone else and leave a note on a grocery receipt explaining why you should be okay with it. You are allowed to have things that belong to you. You are allowed to protect them. You are allowed to make calls that other people find inconvenient. That's not being difficult. That's just knowing what's yours. What happened to me didn't start the day I came home to find my laptop missing. It started years earlier. In every moment, I stayed quiet when I should have spoken. Every dinner where I smiled through a comment that was meant to diminish me. Every time I told myself that keeping the peace was the same thing as keeping my dignity. It wasn't. It never is. There is a kind of thinking that says if you are good enough, patient enough, accommodating enough, the people who underestimate you will eventually see you clearly. I believed that for a long time. I was wrong. People who have decided what you are worth will not revise that number upwards simply because you are gracious about being undervalued. They will take your graciousness as confirmation that they were right all along. Patricia walked into my home because she had done the math on me and concluded that I would absorb it. Derek took a laptop that cost me 8 months of saving because no one in that family had ever seen a consequence arrive on schedule. That's not cruelty exactly. It's something quieter, and in some ways more damaging. It's the assumption that certain people exist to make room for other people's needs, indefinitely, without complaint. What I learned that Tuesday evening is that the only thing that changes that calculation is a clear and consistent demonstration that it is wrong. I did not yell. I did not plead. I did not spend the night crying into a pillow about whether I was being too harsh or whether I was damaging something irreparable. I picked up the phone. I gave a deadline. I documented everything. I called the locksmith. Every one of those actions was small on its own. Together, they communicated something that years of patience had failed to communicate, that I understand what belongs to me, and I am not confused about that, and I am not going to be talked out of it. That clarity, knowing what is yours and being willing to say so out loud, is not something anyone gives you. It is something you build, slowly, through every moment you choose honesty over comfort. I had been building it for years without fully realizing it. The freelance business I started from nothing. The apartment I furnished on my own income. The habits of documentation and backup and preparedness that I developed because I knew that in my life, no one was going to catch me if I fell. I had to build my own net. All of that was practice for the moment I needed it most. Intelligence without the willingness to act on it is just private suffering. Integrity without the spine to defend it is just a story you tell yourself. What I hope anyone watching takes from this is not that you should be aggressive or combative or suspicious of everyone who loves you. It's simpler than that. Know what's yours. Know what you're worth. And when someone makes the mistake of underestimating both, be very calm and be very clear and let the consequences do the rest. The laptop is back on my kitchen table, the locks are changed, and I have never once regretted making that call.